Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm letting everybody come in out of the waiting room. And let me just spotlight Ellen and myself. Wow. Okay, a lot of people coming in. Hi, I'm Debbie Schwartz. Hopefully, I think I know a lot of you, and I'm the founder of Road to College and the Paying for College 101 Facebook group. And I'm here tonight with Ellen Whalen, and Ellen is a private college counselor, and she has been partnering with us for the past 3 years, Ellen. Yep. Working in a program we have called College Insights Academy, which is a monthly coaching program and also works with families who are looking for more one-on-one services. And tonight we wanted to focus on the Common App since it's obviously going to be opening soon, and talk a little bit about how you craft a narrative. And Ellen will talk about this, but what we even mean by narrative. And so let me just do a little housekeeping as I see people are coming in. We'd like to run these are technically a meeting. It is not a webinar. So the only reason I say that is I see some people who you should come in muted, but for whatever reason, a few people are coming in unmuted. And, if you're willing, oops, there's somebody, got to mute them. So if you're willing to put on your video, it's always nice to see who's out there instead of the, black empty squares. So thank you for the people who I do see on video. If anybody else is willing to put their video on, it's just nice to know who's out there. And I'm just going to pull up the chat. Please tell us, I assume the majority of the people on tonight have a rising senior. But so tell us where you're from, kind of where you are in this process. Have you gone on tours? Are you still building your students' college list? Have you started has your students started the essay? No judgment about where you are. If you haven't done anything, that's okay too. Just, tell us what's going on. And let me do one last thing. But Ellen, I'm going to pass it to you. I'm going to start this to stream this on Facebook if anybody wants to watch it there. And would you mind just giving people a little bit about your background and just saying hello?
Yes. Okay. Hi. Welcome, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here with you this evening. My name is Ellen Whalen, and I graduated from Wellesley College with a degree in economics and Spanish. And this is going to be my 7th season going through college admissions. And like you, I have children. And my oldest daughter, I've been through this process twice, so I know how trying it can be and how helpful it can be to also have guidance. My oldest daughter just graduated from Wellesley, and my youngest is about to start her 2nd year at Hamilton College. After I graduated from college, I worked in corporate America at Fortune 500 companies doing sales and marketing. And then I took a break to have children. And then I became a professional writer and editor. And I find those skill sets really have helped me in this field. And I really enjoy helping students find what their strengths are and then figuring out how to highlight them in the Common App and through the whole process with their essays, because these students can look very much alike. And I'm going to be pointing that out as we go along. And the narrative is what ties everything together in a student's life, or what they want the colleges to know to help them stand out. And hopefully it ties in perhaps with the theme of what they want to major in college, along with what they've been focusing on in high school. So that's roughly what a narrative is. So do you want me to get going and sharing my screen,
let's get
Debbie?
going. I think
Okay.
we're going to have a lot of questions. Feel free to put questions in the chat. I love seeing everybody's story about what's going on. Somebody's visited a few schools. People are still building their lists, finishing tours. It sounds like you're in the where we would expect people to be at this time of year. So Ellen's got some slides that we're going to go through. She's going to talk about a sample student and how we might, or how you as, as a parent working with your student might think about pulling in different pieces of your student's story, how that relates to the Common App, and how you might want to see things, pop, and then we're going to go through pieces of the Common App. So that's just the outline of tonight. And as we go through, again, feel free to put questions in the chat. I will be looking at them and I'll interrupt Ellen when appropriate.
Great. Yes, I'm happy to be interrupted if it's something of importance. And I'll take a break between my slides and ask if you have questions, and then I'll jump into the Common App. So those are the two pieces. I'm going to share my screen now. Okay, so can everyone see that? Oops. Debbie, can people see it? Okay, good.
Yes,
thank you.
good.
Okay. So unlocking your student's story, crafting a compelling Common App and personal essay. So college admissions has changed a lot since we went to school. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. I'm from the 80s. A lot of you might be from the 90s. And I imagine that's why a lot of you are here, because it can be nerve-wracking. And so hopefully you and your family, you and your student have been looking at a lot of colleges, whether it's online or on campuses, and you might have noticed the colleges can begin to look a lot alike. And I suggest that students take a lot of notes for our College Insights Academy members, because students are going to have to write often college-specific essays, and having good notes helps them to be able to give specifics. Well, as these colleges look alike to you, there are a lot more students out there than there are colleges. And with the increase in applications, these colleges are overwhelmed and the students look so much alike. Even if a student stands out in their own high school, in the college application pool, they might not stand out. And that is what we want to do tonight, to help your student to stand out. So what are highly competitive colleges looking for today compared to when we went to school? They're looking for well-rounded classes, not the well-rounded students we were told that they wanted. So what happened was everyone got the memo, everyone became well-rounded, and then the colleges couldn't tell the difference between the students. It was just, they didn't know who to choose. So in fact, colleges have a name for this. Even valedictorians, students can be really well-rounded with great grades, but they don't stand out. So at Stanford, they can be called SP. They have acronyms as they're writing, in the file, standard positive. And other schools, some IBs might use LMO, like many others. And that's a bit of the kiss of death. You don't want that put in your application. So what do they want? You might know this already. They want pointy students. Some people say a student with a hook. Basically, students that are experts. You might have also heard lopsided students. So they want them to have some kind of depth in one or two areas, and it doesn't matter really what the area it is. It should be natural what the student is interested in. There's no right or wrong necessarily, but this is where a strong narrative can help to support their pointy sides. So I put down my volume, but I guess not enough because I'm hearing my phone make a noise. Okay, so continuing on, you might be asking, but what if my student isn't applying to a highly rejected college? And that's a great question. A strong narrative can still help in other ways. And I hope you see my little rejected view since 1930. Had a little fun with that. Okay. So a strong narrative can help if a student wants to stand out at a competitive college that might be a target college for them. Also, flagship universities have become really competitive. I don't know if you've known that, but they've had huge growth because a lot of students go to flagships because they have a lot of seats available and they're affordable to families. But it can also help when maximizing merit to stand out in the merit pool. If a student wants to get into an honors college or an honors program, can also help there. Local scholarships when the students are into their schools, Are they going to get some extra money? They're going to have to write more essays. It's not done yet, unfortunately. You think they're done, and then in March and April, they might be writing more essays. So it's really great to have it all established, have a great resume, and then it makes it easier. And then competitive majors. So many students, for example, want to major in computer science. And let's say the school has an 8% acceptance rate, maybe computer science has a 1% acceptance rate at that school. So, and then if the student also is in gender can affect it. So if they're male and they want to do computer science, it's even harder. So that's just, there are many reasons to have a strong narrative and depth in an area.
Ellen, sorry, there's a good question. Somebody's asking, can you define a little bit more like what we mean by competitive major?
Okay, so computer science. Okay, so, well, I'm going to do the next slide. Great question.
Okay, and maybe, and also they wanted to know versus like flagship. What does flagship really mean?
Okay, so flagship is the state university, the big one, like in Massachusetts, where I am, it's UMass Amherst. So it's usually
every state has like that one public out of the public system that is the most competitive, most popular, just attracts the most, the strongest students.
Yeah, there is a most of regional publics. It is the major, the apex of the whole system.
Okay.
All right. So the 6 most popular majors in no particular order: engineering, computer science, psychology, nursing, business/economics, if say a student's applying at a liberal arts school, where majors aren't cared about as much, but still they can't have everyone say they want to be an economics major. And then biological science pre-med, because some of the universities direct admit where they have to apply to a college underneath the university, and other places where at liberal arts schools, they're just applying to the college in general and then saying what they're currently interested in majoring in.
So Ellen, there's a question about how can you tell which majors are more competitive at each school?
So not every school is transparent about it. These are broad strokes, and they tend to, follow through in most schools. I use an example, if our members of the College Insights Academy know, the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, they have, if you Google acceptance rate by major for UI/UC, they actually are transparent and spell it out exactly. The acceptance rate, and I can't remember, let's say computer science 4%, and maybe gen ed is like 65%, and we'll show the differences. Most schools don't do that.
Yeah.
You can ask, and they might tell you, or you can Google and see if you can find out, but they're often not that transparent. So these are good generalities to know.
And there's another place to maybe look, and again, it's not a complete correlation between what you're going to see, and meaning that it's like very competitive, but I think it's on the common data set. It shows you what percentage of people graduate with certain majors. And so at least you would see, like, 20% of the people that graduated from college X were majoring in, business. So it may not always say that that's the most competitive major to go into or be accepted to, but it's showing you where the majority of students are spending their time at the school, by what percentage are majoring in these areas.
Yeah, the government has that, isn't it, through like iPads? I forget exactly what it's under, right, Debbie? Because I don't think it's under, is it under the common data set?
I know, that's why
it's not the common data set. I'm blanking what it is, and maybe as I talk, you can find it.
Yeah.
It's under something like that. But yes, there actually is a site where each college, they, like, if your student's gonna, whatever, like, my youngest daughter was looking at classics, and we'd go and see, like, oh, only 6 people were graduating with a degree in classics. So it can be very helpful to look at that also. So that can give you an after they've graduated, what they're coming out with.
Okay, so one more question, Ellen, before you go on, because I think
Okay.
that this discussion of majors, hit a thread with comments. Where is talk about students declaring a major, on the application or not.
Okay, so I'll get to it on the
Oh, okay,
Common App.
sorry.
Well, no, I was going to say on the Common App, they don't ask you what you're going to major in. They ask you what your future plans are. It's the under the individual college sections, their tabs, that's where they ask you what you're interested in. And a lot of them might give you 3 options. Like my daughter who just went through it, she would put down classics, theater, and film and media studies. They gave her 3 options, and that's what she put down. So everything she was always talking about kind of tied all 3 of them together, but she didn't distinctively say, I'm going to be this type of major. That being said, she was applying to liberal arts schools. So you have to, if it's a direct admit program, we're applying to, engineering at a university, and they're only applying to the engineering college, and that's the school they're in once they're accepted. Sometimes they can't transfer out easily, especially like, let's say a student applies and gets into the liberal arts school at the university, but they really went business and they tried to go in the back door. Doesn't mean they can get into the business program ever. Some of them will never let them in. Other ones might say, if we have an opening and your grades are good enough, University of Indiana, Bloomington, the Kelley School of Business, kids can get into it as a sophomore if their grades are good enough, if they don't get accepted when they apply as a senior in high school. So every school is going to be different. And that's just something you have to do the research on.
Okay, sorry. One more good, interesting question. Somebody's asking, it's been confusing on various titles of majors that universities give, like biomedical engineering. How do I know if the engineering school, if that major is in the engineering school or is in, a different part of the college?
Yeah,
It varies by college to college.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Which
yeah.
is it's a good question, and it's a good thing to research. Whatever your students major in. Again, something like computer science, sometimes it's in the engineering school, sometimes it's just in the regular arts and sciences. And depending on what school it's in, they might have different requirements that they have to fulfill.
Exactly. So there's a lot of research. So every school, you just have to go and dig into and see which department it's in. And if your student or you really can't find it, you can reach out to admissions. But I would hope you'd be able to find it, because you don't want to bother them with, they're very busy with basic things. So, and maybe just do a general Google search on it, and other people might be chatting about it too. And you might get some good information that way. So that's another suggestion. So, okay, I'm going to move ahead if that's all right.
Yep, go ahead.
All right. So, and I just wanted to say, even at regarding majors and like computer science, for example, even at less competitive schools, like a target school, let's say, it's still, if a student's applying for computer science, that still make it uber selective. So the major has to be taken into account, even though you're like, oh, they've got a 40% acceptance rate. Well, not for computer science. So students going after competitive majors have to be aware of having a really varied college list, and not everything be really top heavy. So, all right. So you might be wondering, if you're a strong narrative so important, is anything still under a rising seniors control? Like, what, if anything, can they change now? Is it too late? Well, I'm here to tell you it's not. And there are a number of things students still have control over. And essays are big, the personal statement and the college specific, or also known as the supplemental essays. And as schools have been inundated with applications, the college specific essay has become as important as the personal statement. And some would argue it is now more important than the personal statement, because it shows that the student has done their homework and understands the college. And it can take 2 to 4 hours to do the research to write a really well-crafted college specific essay. And Debbie and I will be doing a talk on that. right, Debbie? At the end of
Yeah,
the month?
it's,
Give a
I think
plug
it's
for that?
July
The-
30th, the last
yes.
Sunday of the month.
Yes, July 30th at 8 o'clock. We're going to be doing a talk on that. So, and we might be looking for essays if your student has written any supplemental essays already. I want to go through some examples. So if that's something they'd be okay sharing, I'm going to be gathering them, and I'd love to, take a look at them and then give some pointers. So that's
So Ellen, sorry, I'm just going to break in because I did find the section that I was looking for.
okay.
It is and I put it in the notes. It's section J of the common data set. It's called degrees conferred. And so they tell you of the students that graduated, how many got degrees in certain majors of the college. So that kind of gives you a sense of where students are focusing at that school. I do also agree, and I think that this information is in iPads, but I just kind of quickly found it in the common data set.
Yeah, I wonder if it's broken down as detailed as it is in iPad. So Debbie, because they break into a lot of.
You know what? Very true. I'm looking at one particular school here, and it's I don't think it's this is by category. On the iPads, it's by majors, which
yes,
good and bad. It might be too broken down in iPads, but this at least in the common data set gives you a direction about what students are focusing on at the school.
Yeah, exactly. So that would give you even more data, but that's a good start.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Good. Okay. So I covered essays, the activities. Students can still add to their activities. It's not too late. I find often in senior years, a lot of students suddenly get some leadership positions that they rise into them, or they might get some kind of honor and unexpected promotion, whatever it is. It often happens senior year, hopefully in the fall. And then grades are still very important. They should be hopefully having their most rigor in senior year, and showing colleges that they are prepared for college level work by getting good grades. And a lot of young men I work with tend to be the upward trending young men. And so it's really important for them to show off, their college readiness. A lot of young women tend to be a little bit more even the whole time. So that's just something to keep in mind. Test scores, they can still be taking the ACT or SAT if they choose to. They also need to figure out whether or not they want to share their scores at all, and if they do, at which schools. So that's a whole nother strategy. Majors, again, maybe if there's an undersubscribed major that a student would be willing to consider, that might be better for them. And if not, they just need to be realistic about the competition and understand, and just respect it, that there's very good competition out there. Course selection, senior year, they should be choosing courses that support their narrative. If a student wants to be an engineer, they should be taking physics if they haven't taken physics already, and hopefully maybe they're taking AP physics. So that's why that's important. And they also want to make sure they're taking the 5 core classes for all 4 years. The more competitive the college, the more that is important to do. So math, science, English, history, and a foreign language. All right, and I have one more slide on the things they can still do. So they can make sure they have a balanced college list that is not too top heavy. So they make sure that they have successes, that they have a financial safety, if that is something a student needs. Letters of rec. Are they supporting the narrative? Have you asked the right teachers? If you want to be a theater major, are you just giving chemistry and physics? You probably want to do English at the very least, and maybe a theater teacher. And have you also kind of guided the teachers, maybe through a cover letter, or if they have like a brag sheet questionnaire, to make sure that each teacher is talking about something different so that things aren't repeated in the application.
So to kind of emphasize that, there was a kind of a question or comment, which is fair, in the chat, and they said, "Are we going to be going over the actual Common App? Like, when are we going to jump into the Common App?" And we are, but there's a reason why we're going through this first, is because we want you to think kind of holistically and strategically about your student, the pieces that you want to emphasize before you jump into the Common App, so that you know what, because there's actually not a lot of you don't have a lot of space to write stuff other than the essay, but when you put everything together, there's not a lot that where you can just keep sharing information. So you have to really think about what information you want to share and how does each piece of information you share fit together to tell the story of who you are.
Yeah, the Common App is only, without the supplemental essays, it's about 13 pages. And a lot of that is biographical data that you can't, it is what it is. And yeah, there might be some activities your students are doing currently that you don't even bother to mention because they just take up space and don't support the narrative and they just aren't relevant. So you don't want to dilute the message either. So yes, we'll be getting to the Common App very quickly, I guarantee you. Okay, so interviews, I suggest you sign up where you can. Some places it's not until after they apply and then a student is contacted for an interview. But if they're offering interviews now, that's a great way to show demonstrated interest and to get your message out more. And the next thing is demonstrate interest. Have you maximize that where it is important to do? Soft factors to consider, and this can come across in your essays or students' essays, and maybe hopefully the teacher supports it. But these college campuses, they want kind students. They want students that are going to be good roommates. So they want to know that you have the students have some really good soft factors. And then the last thing is the future plans. That's part of the Common App. I'll be hitting it really quickly, but whatever the student's future plan is, that they want to be a doctor, let's say, does everything, the narrative, go to support that? Are they a caring person that wants to make a difference in society? Have they volunteered at a hospital? Things like that. All right, so next slide. Okay, so before we jump in the Common App, just a few more things. I have made up a fictitious student. I see a lot of students that look alike. So I kind of had that vein, that thought when I was crafting Jack. And so he goes to a public school, 3.9 unweighted GPA, 1440 SATs, wants to be an engineer. He, like so many students, is in the National Honor Society. He plays a sport, happens to be soccer, and he's in the student government. One other thing I might say is like French club, but this is generally what I see. A lot of students look alike inside the high school. It's where they stand out is outside the high school. So in this case, Jack happens to have been a Boy Scout and he got the Eagle Scout Award. And through the application, you'll see how that became an integral piece of his application. And I'm not going to go into all of it right now, but it will unfold as if we're looking at it from the eyes of an admissions officer. And so he has an aging grandmother that he likes to help out with. Like a lot of young people, he works in a burger joint. I didn't call it McDonald's. He also likes to tinker. He's always been tinkering, and that's usually a good sign that for a future mechanical engineer. And he prides himself, and this is a bit of that soft factor idea of never giving up. I never give up attitude. And I pretended as if he's come to me having a rough draft of an essay. He probably wrote it in English class, junior year. And like most students, it revolves around sports. So very common essay topic. And I'm going to show you when we get just shortly how I also helped craft the essay to have more oomph to it, shall we say. Okay, so how do you tie these varied elements together to make a cohesive narrative that can be reduced down to one sentence? So I'm going to show you. So this is the sentence that we're going to weave throughout the Common App, that Jack is a natural tinkerer, problem solver, activist, and Eagle Scout with a sense of humor who uses his engineering abilities and talents to help the physically challenged in his community. And that has to do with his Eagle Scout Award, his project. And so when admissions officers are looking at the Common App, they need to reduce down how they see the student so they can if they're going to committee, if it isn't like an admit by numbers type of school, like some very large publics are, like, okay, you know, your GPA is right, your course rigor's right, and your test scores are great, you're in. You know, other schools do holistic. So this is like the narrative of what the student is thinking. This can be their elevator pitch if they're going into an interview, but this can be even more of a reduction that admission officer might write in the file, that Jack is a jack of all trades, future engineer, Eagle Scout, and community activist for the physically challenged. And that could be when the admissions officer goes to committee and is fighting for Jack. And this could be the reminder of who Jack is for them, because they have so many people, and a starting point of presenting Jack. And then they'll pull up all of his test scores and grades up on a big screen, and they all look at it together as his local admissions officer presents him. Okay, so that is the, I think I have one more slide. Okay, so now let's look at the Common App. So through the eyes of the admissions officer. So keep that in mind. We're going to try to pretend you guys have never seen it before. So we aren't going to know everything as we begin to look at it like an admissions officer. So, and so any questions before I jump into the Common App?
Let's say I've been answering a lot. Okay, so there's been some questions about teacher recommendations. Somebody asked when to ask for them. I don't, you know.
Yes. Okay. So ASAP, like I always recommend in our college.
I didn't want to make the person nervous when I responded, but
yeah. May or June would have been a great time, but it's still not too late. It is not too late. But some teachers will say, you know, I only do 15 students, and I'm sorry, you're number 16. Other teachers try to do as many as they can, but you know, they don't get paid to do these, so they get more and more tired. You know, and overwhelmed. So I would do it as soon as possible and choose teachers that support the narrative. And as we go through, you know, I'm sure I'll touch upon that, but like Jack should definitely have some, at least his physics teacher, if not also his calculus teacher, if he wants to be an engineer.
So that's another question about teacher recommendations. Do you think that somebody should get a that if they might get a better recommendation from a teacher in one subject versus a generic one from the subject of the a generic one from the teacher of the subject that they have, that they might want to major in, which one should they go after? It's
a tough one. So I can tell you that at MIT, even though it's engineering, they want a humanities and they want a math or science. So what I first would suggest is looking at if there are requirements for recommendations. A lot of schools are just fine with whatever. A lot of them only want one teacher. More competitive schools want two. So first know what's being asked of you. And the next thing is, that's a tough one. That really is. And hopefully, if the student doesn't feel they can do the one in their major, maybe they can prompt that other teacher to mention things about the students, how their passion in some capacity. But the main thing that they want from the teachers is they want to understand how the student is in the classroom. That is the point of the recommendation, to say that the student's highly engaged and is always asking questions. And when they break out into groups, that the student is a natural leader, and that he or she hangs out after class to ask for extra reading, or they discuss maybe a topic in the news that was relevant to the class, and just that they're intellectual, have a thirst to learn more, a lifelong learner. And so those are just traits that hopefully will come out through the teacher. But that's the point. They just want to know through the eyes of the teacher how the student is in the classroom, to know how they might be on the college, you know, in the classroom in the college. So tricky question, and I hope I gave you some good ideas.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
There's some more questions, but I think we should get in. And, yeah.
Okay, so now we're going into the Common App. Hopefully I don't need to restart it again. Okay, I'm going to see. Okay, so here is Jack's Common App. It's got, you can see the sections on the left here. profile and family, that's just all the biographical data. So I didn't bother with that. Education. These are all different inputs that you put the information into. And I'm going to hit preview, and you're going to see there's not that much to it. This is the education part after all those tabs are filled out. So I'll quickly go through it. No change in progress. He didn't leave school or switch schools. He's in the top 10% of his rank, and you can choose numerically. They have all different choices. However your school does it, no rank, whatever. I'm going to be going over the Common App, common mistakes like I do every year with Debbie. I guess in August, probably, Debbie. Anyway, so I'm not going to go into huge detail about it, but you can see his GPA 3.9 unweighted. So here we're admissions officers, first time meeting Jack, right? And we're seeing, oh, he's taking Calc AP BC. So he's really pushing himself in math, right? This is senior year grades. He's not slacking. I mean, senior year courses. AP Physics C, which is for calculus. AP Literature. So he's taking 3 AP classes. You know, that's a good amount. It's not the most competitive amount. It's interesting. I'm making note he's, taking 3. He is challenging himself. He has Spanish and history honors, meaning he has 4 years, the 5 core subjects. That's great. And look, for his electives, he chooses guitar building and robotics. Wow, that's interesting. And so, we don't know yet. He wants to be an engineer, but probably we're getting some signs. And he, for honors, he has the Eagle Scout Award, which is a national award, and the National Honor Society, which is a school award, and the future plans. So future plans, students go into it and they can choose, like, if they want to be an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer for future plans. If they scroll all the way down to the bottom, they can choose other, and then they can write in 100 characters exactly what they want to do. And this is where our narrative begins. So mechanical engineer, to create devices/solutions to make the world more accessible to all. And he wants to go on to have a master's. And like, wow. As an admissions officer, I'm going, oh, that's pretty intriguing. And I guess I now see why he's doing guitar building and robotics, and how, he's invested in calculus and physics. Okay, so that is education. And now I'm going to go into testing. I'm going to preview it. And he has taken 1 SAT. And in this case, for this college, whatever college is, he's showing his SATs. He could choose not to show them. So every single application, the common part of the Common App can be changed. And once it's sent off to a college, it can't be unchanged. But for the next college, I can put tests in or remove tests. I can change an essay. Say I want to change the personal statement for some reason. That's what you can do. So in this case, the test scores are in, and he's taken 2 AP tests that we see, or he's showing, giving us the scores he got. He might have taken more APs, but it looks like he's taken 5 APs from what we can glean. And there's the Calc AB. So that's the end of the testing. And now we're getting into the real heart of it.
Wait, sorry, Ellen, I think I was answering questions, so I missed it. Did you talk at all about the GPA, about whether to share unweighted versus weighted?
No, I did not, because I'm not discussing that tonight.
Okay.
No, I know. I just mean those are like the details I'm not going into. But you can ask your guidance counselor, have the student ask the guidance counselor how they like it to be presented. But that could be a whole nother debate. Weighted, unweighted. There's an option you can do. They let you do, we'll get it more into that in the talk when I go over the Common App. But ask the guidance counselor how they recommend the students present it. Okay. All right. So testing. So I did testing. So now the heart of it, activities and writing. We're almost done with the Common App. There's not that much to it. Okay. So in the activities section, they have 10 different, this is how it's put in, 10 different activities that they can put in. They don't have to use all 10 spots, but there is the title of the position is 50 characters. The title of the organization is 100 characters. And then the description is 150. My brain had to think of the math again. It comes to 300 characters total. And that's how it's broken out. Title 50, I'm sorry, name, and then title of the organization 100, and then 150 for the description. So these are his activities. I didn't put every single, I made these up, and I could have done a little bit more minutia type things, but I didn't bother. So his most important activity is first, Eagle Scout. That's an impressive activity, right? So he planned and built stairs on Wooded Walk. And that's, so using the first part for the title of what he did is 50 characters. We fully used it. Could have just put Eagle Scout and left it at that, but we want to use up the space. And then organization, Boy Scouts of America, could have used that even more, but didn't need to, but there's still room left over of the 100 characters. So managed 5 scouts. We're talking about, he's showing leadership here. Managed 5 scouts, built stairs and railing so people of varying abilities can enjoy trail. Problem solved engineering challenges. So bringing in the engineering, bringing in kindness, bringing in, activism, we'll find out. And he volunteered with seniors, all right? And he does 4 hours a week for 42 weeks a year. So this is his average for, his whole high school time. So next, under science and math, he's giving his own title. This is something he does at home. Tinkerer. Enjoy taking apart appliances and cars. Tinkered since age 5, rebuilt car engine, fixed appliances, built a computer, create new products to fix problems and help others. So we're showing a lot of depth of how he has always been innately an engineer, right? So family responsibilities. More and more colleges have been stressing what do you do? Like a lot of kids don't even think about what they naturally do outside of school. And that can, again, help to distinguish them. But a lot of students do things that maybe they watch their siblings and they don't think anything of it, but they can't get a job because that is their job, watching their siblings. So just think about things that students are doing naturally. Maybe they even for a week make notes of what they do every day. And they might be surprised that maybe, I forget that every day I play the guitar for an hour. There just could be some things they don't even think about. So family responsibilities. So this is where you can have a little fun. Grandson and jack of all trades. Help grandmother when assistance needed, making repairs around her house. Go on walks together. As she aged, found she had trouble on her favorite walk. Talked to the senior center in town to build stairs, promoted access. So this is where we see he's an activist. He saw a problem and then came in and came up with a solution. But to do that, he had to get permission from the town. And he also wanted support from the senior center to see if other seniors needed access to it and if there was enough demand for it. And so he created his own project, and it became a big piece of his application. He didn't need to go win an award. He didn't need to become president of something. He did it himself naturally through what he loves.
I love actually reading these descriptions because I'm getting a sense of who this student is. There was a question, Ellen, what is PG under family responsibility?
Post-grad. So if someone's taking it like a 13th year. Okay, so this is student government. A lot of students are in student government, right? And instead of leading with class representative, which is so common, activist. And I have to say, I forgot to point out, capitalizing the titles makes them stand out. And that's a little trick. So activist and class representative, high school government, petition for and help create / resolve solution to another student's physical challenge at school. I want all students to participate fully at school. So in this case, he had a friend that was having some challenges and he wanted to help out. And when I go over what he's going to write about in his essay, we'll touch upon that more. But right now we're like, wow, we're intrigued. Again, a lot of soft factors of him caring about others and wanting to make a difference. This is the type of student you might want on your college campus if you were admissions officer, right? He's going to make a great roommate. So, expert burger flipper. Again, having a little fun, Joe's Burgers suggested and implemented faster processes. So he's thinking from a point of view of an engineer about the flow. Team leader, train new employees. So many students are training employees and they don't even think about it. Closed restaurant, greet customers with a smile. And there's again a soft factor. He's a nice guy. And then the last thing is, so many of the students that I read, they're captains. Well, not everyone can be an expert. Not everyone can be the best. Here, he's bench warmer extraordinaire as a soccer player. He's having fun with it. He's not bragging. He loves soccer, and he's not that great at it. He's not bad. He made varsity, but he's not. It's not his first activity, but it's important to him. So he cheers the team on. He keeps the team stats. He loves the sport, whether playing or watching, always trying to improve and stay in shape. And then in turn, he won the Most Improved Player award. So he just sounds like a great guy. So we've really gotten a sense of him, about him.
There's there's a bug. There's a few just tactical questions that I think that are important to highlight.
Mhm.
The caps.
Mhm.
Why are some things in capitalized?
Okay, I did say that, but I guess they didn't hear. So only the titles are capitalized to jump out and be bold. So I'm an admissions officer. I have to read really quickly. Eagle Scout, tinkerer, jack of all trades, grandson, activist, expert burger flipper, bench warmer extraordinaire. It's just to have them pop.
So it's just a design, it's not,
Yes.
it's just, as Ellen said, it's just trying to use as much as you can, which you don't have a lot at your disposal, but you can capitalize certain things to make it the emphasis that as
Exactly.
somebody who, for the admissions officer who's going to have to go through a lot, like those words, just they do pop and you can see them more clearly. So obviously that means something that you're trying to convey.
Yes. Yep. Because you can't highlight it, in pink. So this is one of the few things you can do, and show a little character too. So
Ellen,
okay.
there've been a few questions, and just talk about what you're looking at, that this is a preview, and why it's important to look at the Common App from this preview.
Yeah. Okay.
View.
This is how when the Common App is all, when it's sent to admissions, this is what it looks like for them. They're going to get it. It's going to be running. It's going to be like 13 pages, but the activity section will look like this. So what I did was I made parents, anyone can make a practice Common App. So this is a practice Common App. If I had a real Common App and I'd have to put in the student ID and everything, you could do the preview and you would see the running list, all 13 pages, roughly whatever it comes out to be, depending upon how much is written, all together. So if your student does their preview in the end, they can see everything all together before they send it off, and they can print it out if they want. If sometimes it's easier to edit when things are printed out on paper. But yeah, so this is just within the practice Common App that I do section by section. So if I'm going to go to writing now, and I'm going to hit, well, I'll just show you before I hit preview. I'm going to show you how these are all the essay questions that are asked. Reflect on a time when you questioned or challenged a belief or idea, what prompted your thinking. I always tell students to, in our college insights academy, to share an essay, the last one, on any topic, because I don't want an admissions officer, I'm going to choose reflect on a time you questioned or challenged a belief, and the admissions officer is saying they didn't really support I didn't really believe what they were saying regarding this belief or idea. I didn't think they questioned it that much. You want to show growth and reflection, maybe overcoming hardship, show some grit, whatever it is they're trying to show. But if they share an essay or topic of any choice, then you don't need to worry about not hitting the mark with the question. So that's one tip.
So Ellen, sorry, do you mind going back to the activity section?
Nope.
Just
Should I hit
A
preview?
quick question, yes, hit preview. The titles like community service volunteer in blue. Is that?
I'll
is-
show, you choose them. You
Yes,
choose them.
that's
Yeah,
the question.
yeah. Again, we'll be going over the Common App, but see, these are all the choices.
Great. And one other quick question, I think that this is interesting. So somebody, you've been talking about activities and how people describe their activities, or students describe it. Somebody's asking, does making Quizlet notes for other peers in my class, would that count as an activity?
Yeah, yeah.
I think it could be.
Absolutely. And whether or not,
And it can show a lot about that student.
and whether or not it falls under like, an umbrella of what they want to major in, because they are a bit of an expert in that area, that would support it even more. And maybe they're also a tutor, so it depends. It all depends. That could be one piece of something that's bigger.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just wanted to.
Yep. Okay. So I'm going to now, like I said, go back to the writing, and I'm going to hit preview. I think, okay. So here we go. So here, so in this section, there is the essay. The essay is 650 words. And so what I just did was, I just gave the essence of it. And I said, the first essay that he gave me in this, fictitious scenario, like I said about Jack, original essay idea about loving soccer, but not being good enough to make first string, but he was recognized for his team spirit, support, and never give up attitude. So that's like, a lot of students will write about, oh, soccer's my life, I broke my leg, and then I realized there is life outside of soccer. Like that can be often a common themed essay. Well, I don't, if he really wanted to write about soccer, and a lot of students, a sport's really important to them, they can, but they want to take a different tact. So I suggested for his final draft that he should tie in, that would help strengthen and tie in his narrative, because the essay can really bring all the loose strings together, right? Because we really don't know a lot about his grandmother and what he did with his Eagle Scout award so much yet. I've shared a little bit with you, but so the essay is really going to tell us. So I suggested to him, as if he was my client, that he could use his stick to itness attitude and desire to help others, and he could open his essay maybe with sitting on the bench, like the bench warmer that he is, and while he's pondering how he doesn't mind sitting there, like how he's sticking with soccer even though he's not the greatest player, he can think about how he is great, like how the first time he took a car engine apart and how he couldn't get everything back together and he had pieces left over and whatever, but he stuck with it, did lots of research, talked to his local mechanic friend, and he got it to work and got the engine back together. And then the next paragraph could be, he thinks about his grandmother and how she taught him patience, and how, he likes to help her. And as she was aging, she couldn't do her favorite walk anymore because she couldn't get down one steep part. There was a hill, and this walk, it was level otherwise. And he said, wow, I can learn how to build stairs and use my engineering prowess and build these stairs for my grandmother. And probably there are other people that might need to get down this steep hill, which with erosion, when it rains, gets worse and stuff like that. And so he fixed that problem. So he's pondering that as he's sitting on the bench. And then the last thing that comes to his mind is a student at school, a friend of his who also has a physical challenge, who he realized needed some support. And he came up with a solution, but he had to petition the student government, to make a change in the school. And that is another way he became an activist inside his school and in his community. And that's the essence of his essay, potentially, and how he just loves to solve problems and help people and make people's lives better. And what I always recommend in the personal statement, and I've gone through this with our CIA members at College Insights Academy, is that the essay, these students are applying to be students in college, right? The personal statement can be misleading because, you can talk about, a student can talk about their life, but ultimately, what does this have to do with college? So Jack will come back and say, that end it with how everything he says ties into what he wants to study in college, meaning becoming an engineer, and kind of wrap it up that way, that he is excited to learn even more about engineering, studying it in all the different ways he hopes to be able to help people and come up with devices after he graduates and has a career helping people. And he can also continue to think about it and weave it into college specific essays. Like a lot of them have why this major, and then he can maybe talk about the engineering from a different angle, and we get a fuller and fuller picture of Jack. So that's what I would suggest. That's an example of the writing, and you can just see though how it just tightened this whole narrative now. So the other two sections in the writing section are there's community disruption. I think it's 250 words, where a student can talk about COVID, how they were impacted by COVID, and or unfortunately a natural disaster, a hurricane, something, the wildfires. So in this case, I had nothing for Jack, but I just gave an example. A student could explain if there were bad, grades weren't the best in 9th grade because they were struggling being online. These two sections, this and additional information section, you want to keep it brief and to the point. These admissions officers have read a lot. Maybe they only have 5 minutes. We don't know, maybe you're getting lucky and they're intrigued and they're going to read it for 9 minutes. So you want to be very careful what you put in, but it is important. It can be very helpful to put stuff in. A lot of people don't put anything in. So I'm going to give you some ideas of what might go in here. And when I go over the Common App, I'll give even more ideas, but these are ideas through the lens of Jack. So his Eagle Scout project, he could go into a little bit more detail here, maybe some bullet points. He happened to have a newspaper article because there was an article written about him. A link can go there, and that shows evidence. And they may or may not be able to link on it, click on it to open the link. But if he has one, great. He, as an future engineer, he might have a maker's portfolio, and Jack happened to take his family took a lot of pictures of him taking things apart, so he could throw it up on a website. Or like MIT and Tufts, for example, do encourage a maker's portfolio. And these colleges, if they encourage it, they might actually let a student upload it through Slide Room, and they'll give instructions on exactly what they want. But Slide Room is part of, if your student has like an art portfolio, that's how the pictures are uploaded into the Common App. But if they aren't asking for it in that format, he might just have a website showing all of his stuff. And it might be something that when he's interviewing, he might say, oh, can I show you some of the things I've done, and show photos. Like, there's just a lot of different ways to approach it. Another thing students can talk about are restrictions. Remember, we were wondering about his APs. His school only lets him take 2 APs junior year and 3 senior year. The most they can take are 5 APs. So that's good to know. It should be in the high school profile. Everyone should be looking at their student's high school profile. It's like the resume for high school. Google the school's name. If you can't find in the high school profile, if you can't find it, ask the college and the guidance counselor to look at it, because they should be explaining this. Because when an admissions officer is looking at your student's transcript, they're also looking at the high school profile at the same time to understand it. So something like that could be clarified. Class conflict could be clarified. So he wanted to take AP computer science, but he had a conflict with AP physics. They were at the same time. So instead he took AP lit, right? But he did on his own, because he couldn't take it. He went on to edX, and he took Stanford's Computer Science 101 class on his own, showing he goes above and beyond. And so this is all great to have in this area. And that's it. And that is the Common App.
So Ellen, there's been a few questions throughout about a resume. Should students do a resume, and where does that fit relative to what you just went through on the Common App?
Okay, I love resumes, and I've done a talk on, all the reasons you might want to have a resume. So some schools let students upload a resume into the Common App. Other schools don't. Some students upload the resume into the additional information section, and they should not do that. So that's a no-no. The resume, whether it can or cannot be uploaded, should be used during an interview, because then it's a lot easier. The person interviewing your student knows exactly pointed questions to ask. Oh, tell me about this project you did with the Eagle Scouts. It sounds fascinating. It can also be if a student is reaching out to admissions to ask a specific question, not a general question like, what's your acceptance rate, but a specific question they can't get an answer to easily, or they want to introduce themselves, they can attach the resume. It's great if they're applying for scholarships. It's also very helpful to give to your teachers and guidance counselor for the letters of rec. You just don't want them, reciting the resume. It's like evidence and backup. You want to give them a cover letter or a brag sheet to kind of guide them and say, hey, could you please talk about in physics class how, I did this project and what you thought of it. Then the English teacher, you want to have the English teacher write about, how you are such a big lover of literature and how you're always asking for outside reading, so they're covering different aspects of your personality, but the resume can be supporting that. So that's another place a resume can be used. And it's really great to have ready to go, because when these kids get to campus, most colleges use Handshake. And if they're going to get a job, they have to have a resume uploaded into Handshake so that they can get competitive jobs, because they can go quickly, even if they are getting work study jobs can go. And also if they're going to be applying to internships for the summer. And it's just really great to have a resume, get it done now, and then they can tweak it as they continue in life.
Another few questions. One's about if a student has taken college classes, how does it get reflected in the Common App?
So that would be under the education section. They would say there's a question, schools you've been to, and then the college, and then the college can be added in there if they're getting a transcript. You only do that if they're getting a transcript, and then the transcript has to be sent. Sometimes the transcript is tied into the high school transcript. If it's, dual enrollment, that's the type of thing you talk to your guidance counselor about how it should be presented. But yes, there's a section to do for college credit. But if a student has maybe taken a class at a college, like a summer camp at a college, if they're not getting credit, do not put that there, because they'll expect a transcript. That would be an activity if they didn't get credit. And I go over this when we go over the Common App.
Another good question about, would you recommend only choosing activities for the activity section that your student plans to continue in college?
No, absolutely not. No, because like with Jack, he's taking care of his grandmother. That's vital information. He's not going to be taking care of his grandmother in college. You could say in the summer, sure, but they're more like, is this something you want to do on the campus? Can we expect that you're going to continue to play the oboe in our orchestra? That's more the questioning.
So just to reiterate, there are 10 possible activities that you can fill out, and somebody's asking, do you need to fill out all 10?
No, because you don't want to water them down. So, if it's something that isn't relevant whatsoever, or someone was in French club in 9th grade and that was it, and they switched to Spanish, you wouldn't bother. So some people say you should only put in 8 because, the admissions officers, again, don't have a lot of time. So don't waste their time, / they barely read the last 2 anyway. So those are some, things that people believe. Obviously every admissions officer is going to be different and every situation is going to be different, but they do assume the most important 2 or 3 activities, that the ones at the top are the ones most important to a student. And I think they should be grouped together. So even if you have a student that's, wants to be an engineer and you have all the engineering stuff up top, but one of them, something might be something he didn't do all that long, putting them all together. So maybe there are 4 engineering activities together shows impact.
So this is not directly what we're talking about tonight, but a few people have asked about this. People are asking what is a passion project and how that might be reflected on the Common App.
Well, you could say that Jack's Eagle Scout Award was a passion project, right? That was something he did on his own. He happened to get, it was under the umbrella of Eagle Scouts, but that could just as easily have been something he did on his own if he wasn't a Boy Scout, and that could be called a passion project. So like my daughter made her own website and YouTube videos. She loves to bake, and she tied in history because she, likes history, and so she did a bunch of baking videos and blogging, and she did that because she was in theater, and theater shut down during COVID. So that became a passion project for her. So there are lots of different, as someone that might want to be a doctor, might be doing experiments at home, and for whatever that leads to, whether or not they're doing some research. So a passion project, someone could be a big gardener and they start doing different types of cross-pollinating things, or just trying different scenarios of watering the plants different amounts or whatever. It can be anything, could become a passion project, but it's usually self-directed learning is kind of, I think, how I would define it. And hopefully it supports what they want to major in. It doesn't have to. It could be something they used to be interested in, and they, got what they needed out of it, and now they realize that they're interested in this, and their essay could be about that, or in an interview, whatever. So it doesn't have to be what they're going to major in.
So there have been a lot of questions about going back to the recommendations. We talked about, maybe choosing between different teachers within a school, but also a lot of questions about, can a recommendation come from somebody who's not a teacher?
Yes. So some schools, if you go and you look under the individual college, so I don't have it here because it's it would be under my colleges if I had a real Common App, and I then had put colleges in under that, you would hit the individual colleges, and it would then tell you what the supplemental essay is. That's where it would be filled out. They might ask, oh, where did your parent go to this school? Asking if it's their legacy or not. And then under it, they will tell you how many letters of rec they require, and how many you could have extras. Like some of them might say they want one teacher, but they'll take one extra one, and they'll take 2 outside recommenders if you want. But the only one required is 1 teacher, and always the guidance counselor, because they've got to send off the high school profile and the transcript and stuff like that. So that's how you know what they'll accept. Like I know Yale only takes 2 teachers and nothing else, 2 teachers and the guidance counselor, unless I've heard the exception is if a student has done research, then they'll take a letter from the person with whom they've done research formally. Other than that, nothing else. So every school is going to be different. A lot of the liberal arts
so they really have
will
to
take
check
more.
with the school.
Exactly. They've got to check under on the Common App under that specific school, it will say.
This is a good question. Somebody's asking, because we showed in that additional information section where somebody was linking to potentially an article that they might have written or gotten written about themselves. Somebody's asked, should they put a link to their LinkedIn account in that section?
Yeah, I highly doubt they're going. I've heard admissions officers saying they just don't have time to look at those. Like that could be something on a resume, and if an interviewer wants to look them up, they can. I just don't. I don't think they're going to have time to do something like that. But if they want to put it in,
it can't hurt. But
exactly,
right.
They aren't going to be penalized. But don't expect
rely.
that they're going to look at it.
That
Exactly. I think it would be great on the resume though, with a live link on the resume. And if the person then has the resume not in paper form but electronically, someone can click on it.
This is a nice question. what if my student's not an art major, but has a lot of art projects? Can they still highlight that or upload that information?
So generally, if they're not going to major in art, you don't send the information, because the admissions officers aren't judging people. The people who are sending in art portfolios to major in art, it gets sent off to the art department, and the professors assess it. And then they tell the admissions officer whether or not the student has talent. So you wouldn't do it. That being said, they can definitely talk about it if their passion is, they don't want to major in, art, but they love to draw and they spend a lot of time doing it. And maybe some of their artwork has been published, in the school newspaper, whatever it is. And it's the way they relax and have fun. So there's nothing wrong with it being an activity, but you would not upload it as an art portfolio. Now, your student might have a website showing it off, and if someone has time and is able to look at it, great. Don't expect that they're necessarily going to, especially if the student isn't majoring in it, but that could be a possibility.
Any recommendations? Somebody is saying their high school is very new and they don't have a profile. I would think in that case, you might want to add that a lot more information in the additional information section.
And that should be remedied, though. I mean,
yeah, I would also.
That's like, I don't know. How could you not? I don't understand it. I mean, I can understand why they aren't going to necessarily have all the schools listed where students have.
They should be able to put something together.
Exactly, because usually they take a summation of the junior class and will say these were their average test scores or the test scores of the class before, or they'll do grade distributions. This is how many kids got A's in physics last year, and in the junior, the seniors are now in junior year, the grade distribution for physics the year before, to see if there's grade inflation. Like, that's something that might be in the high school profile. So there's things they can definitely put in there, and they should be listing the classes available. How many, if any, APs are they in IB school? They have to have something there. They have something on their website. I can't, if they don't have one, they better do one. I mean, I don't understand it. I don't know why they wouldn't have one.
There's been a few questions about where to share honor or award information.
Yep, I showed that under the Eagle Scout part, and I can show it again where I did. It's under education. So we go to preview. It's under honors right here. So there are 5. You can put in 5 honors. So sometimes, if the student has a lot of honors, more than 5, so National Honor Society could have been taken off to make room for another honor, and that could have become an activity. And I could have said, tutored physics as part of National Honor Society, and then volunteered at the local soup kitchen. So that would be one way if they had more than 5 to manipulate things. They could also potentially group some stuff together. If they had to, they could put another honor in the additional information section, or maybe something's a big honor like the Eagle Scout and it needs to be explained in the additional information section. But again, you want to be as to the point as you can be. You don't want to put essays in there. You just want to be clarifying to make it easier for the admissions officer to understand your application as a whole, and potential issues in your high school, like class conflicts.
So there's been a lot of questions about, can my student start the Common App now, and what happens on August 1st?
So then they have to roll it over. So they can start it now, and then they would go back in. And then I think I did it last year. I think the Common App says you want to roll it over, and then you say yes. And then everything stays, is my understanding, except for if a student had worked on like the supplemental essays, those are erased.
Yeah, so I've heard that I wouldn't do the essays. I wouldn't upload essays before August 1st, but you can start filling it out and rolling it over.
Yes, and the essays also might change too, even if your student was doing that in a Word doc, they might change. But maybe the schools have confirmed that the essays are staying the same. And often they do, but they've been tweaking them a lot post-COVID. And
And you mentioned, but maybe show again, where would somebody see the specific essays for a college, you know, like the additional essays that each college may ask a student to fill out?
So it would be under my colleges again, which I don't have any in there. Under that, they will hide it under questions. And there's another one they put it under writing. So if you look under writing, some schools will have the supplemental essays there and some schools don't. And you think, oh, there are no supplemental essays. This is awesome. And you happen to look at questions and there's an essay there. So often the questions are like, do you plan to live on campus? You know, but sometimes there could be like a 50-word essay there. So you just don't know. So you have to look through it thoroughly. And it could also be that your student is applying. They might say, oh, is your student interested in applying to the honors college? There could be no supplemental essay. They want to apply to honors college. Suddenly the honors college essay pops up. So they should fill it out fully to see each college, you know, when after August 1st, to make sure there are no hidden essays. They might be like engineering, just engineering kicks off an essay. No other major does. Or let's say architecture, that might be an example. Your student wants to be an architect and that's the only major that kicks off an essay. So they would hit that in the under the college, the specific college, they would touch that they want to do, you know, architecture.
So one last question about resumes. Is it acceptable for a resume to contain the same information as what you're going to list in the activity section?
Yes, but I would hope because you are not limited by 300 characters, you're going to have more meat in the resume. So that's the other great thing about resume. The resume should not be more than 1 page unless your student has been a CEO for like 20 years. So 1 page, I get, you know, 3 or 4 pages and a lot of wasted space. So make the margins wide, you know, but 1 page. And sorry.
No, oh no, that's
no. I was just going to say that is a great way to expand it also, besides using potentially the additional information section. Or again, using that judiciously, but you can do whatever you want on your resume. There are no rules besides what I suggest, the 1 page. And proper grammar and no spelling mistakes and being consistent. So many kids are inconsistent with their grammar. If you're gonna not have a period at the end of your descriptions, don't sometimes put a period and sometimes do, for example. Are you gonna use semicolons or commas? You know, be consistent, whatever they choose to do.
So there's been a few questions / comments about the phrase passion project. Mm-hmm. Is it really just like a hobby? Is it, somebody said, which I do agree with, is it just a marketing term? So any opinions on it, Ellen, that you want to add?
All of the above. Yeah,
right.
You know, it is a bit of a marketing thing. It's the new buzz thing, just like so many kids are doing research and they're getting published, but meanwhile, the company that they're paying to do the research also owns the publishing, and then they pay, you know, to get their research published. There's a lot of people make a lot of money off of marketing the idea of the passion project. Again, our Eagle Scout project was a passion project. He did it all on his own. He didn't pay anyone to do it. My daughter didn't pay anyone to come up with a website and do YouTube videos on baking. You know, that was a passion project. And she had admissions officers comment on her passion project. And one admissions officer watched every video she made. So, and I just happened to hear that through admissions when I was speaking to them. But so that's a passion project.
Right. And it's not as concocted, you know, it's looking like it's professional. It truly is reflecting her interests.
Exactly. And I didn't pay anyone $2,000 to have them, to do it for her, or help her with it, whatever. Yeah, it should be authentic. It should look like a student did it, and hopefully really they learn through it. I mean, that's, my daughter learned so much through teaching herself how to do all the editing, for example. And it should just be organic, something they're naturally interested in.
So there's a good question about, does the Common App essay need to link to this, what the student's major might be that they're saying that they're interested in?
No, it does not have to, but I find it can be helpful again to perhaps wrap it up, to maybe point in that direction. But a recommendation is that a student doesn't write everything, their personal statement all about their major, because when it comes to the why this major essay, they might not have anything else to write. But, in our example of Jack, he can definitely talk more specifically with mechanical engineering and some of the struggles or challenges he's had, taking apart a blender and the inner workings of it and different things like that, and how he wants to work on, I don't know, whatever special thing they might have in the engineering school he's considering, a turbine engine. I don't know. And that's a way to connect the two if they do have turbine engines. He's worked on the blender, and I don't know anything about engineering, but I think there's probably a link there. And so that's just a way to tie things together.
Okay, so there's been a lot, and this is our last topic. A lot of questions about undecided major. How is that bad? Is that bad? How is that going to reflect on the student when they have this application that they are undecided?
Okay, so there's two thoughts on this. Some people say, just choose something anyway. Okay, it's like some schools like Northeastern actually you can come in undecided. They have like Northeastern, are you going to do engineering? Are you going to do communications? They actually have a place for undecided where these students all come together and they're accepted under that umbrella. And then they expose them to the different schools at Northeastern to get them to then choose where they want to step into as sophomores, right? Liberal arts schools, it doesn't tend to matter if they're undecided. Some people, though, say it looks like they should at least have the sense of a direction. Other schools, I've heard the Dean of Admissions, Lee Coffin from Dartmouth, say he loves undecided. He thinks that's exciting. If they're going to do undecided, they should at least show passions. They're still curious. They're still life learners. They can have different passions. Like, again, my daughter was interested in theater, classics, and film and media studies. She wasn't saying, I am only going to be this. She was looking at those three things, and they tied in with her whole thing with this, her baking videos and talking about where the history of spices were when she did her Swedish cardamom buns, and how the Vikings were traveling and got the cardamom and stuff like that. So she was showing how she was curious and tying these things together, and she did it all through the lens of storytelling. Her essay was all about how she loves the art of storytelling and how she wants to be a storyteller. So yeah, there's ways to keep it kind of broad, and maybe someone wants to be an attorney someday, and right now they're interested in like history and philosophy, and they just want to learn more about that, but ultimately they want to be a lawyer. But it doesn't have to be directly connected. Lawyers, people can major in anything undergrad. So I think it's just important to show they do have some interests, and they just aren't exactly sure how they want to focus it. Like, I worked with a client that got into Brown, and she put in undecided, but she was definitely interested in ancient languages, and she uploaded an art portfolio, and she considered the RISD program, and yeah, she was undecided, but she had a lot of interest, and she was also very interested in languages, and had gotten into the NASLY, the national, through the State Department, where they send students abroad to to learn. She was sent to learn Arabic as a high school student. But so she had a lot of interest, and that was okay. And she applied undecided. And she last year took Middle Egyptian, as in ancient Egyptian, from the middle period.
There was one letters of recommendation. We talked a lot about them, but are they specific to a school? Meaning, like, we talked about you might have some letters of recommendations from a teacher, but if you want to add something from outside the school, somebody outside the school. So can you add different letters of recommendations for different schools?
Well, it should be generic. It could be that there's just one school that, for whatever reason, let's say, someone that went to that school and you want them to write a letter on your student's behalf. If they know the student well, and it might be specifically because they're an alum of whatever the school is, and that letter is only going to that school. And that letter may even be sent, as an email, to an admissions officer. So that would be an example of it just being for that. Other cases, it might be that, like with Yale, they're only taking 2 and you happen to have extras, and maybe you can only go to a couple schools because they're the only ones that allow extra letters. So there could be just by default a reason. But in general, it should be a letter about the student, not the school. So it should be student specific, unless it, again, could be a professor. Maybe they did a summer program at a specific school, and they got to know a professor well. And that might be a reason, but it doesn't mean that letter couldn't be general. So it could go out to other colleges. But maybe they're applying ED, and they're doing that one and done, hopefully. And then that letter doesn't have to be uploaded. So with each, under the colleges, they select, the letters they're choosing, so you don't have to send, every letter doesn't have to go off. But you don't bother 5 teachers and get 5 different teacher letters and pick and choose which ones.
Right. So thank you, Ellen. I think it was a really helpful session. What's today? Today's the 18th, July 18th. So again, the Common App officially opens August 1st, but you can see how you can be doing work now to figure out what activities, what stories that you want highlighted in your student's application. I don't know, any other last words of wisdom, Ellen, that you have to share with people, kind of to help them get prepared before they dive into this?
Well, it seems overwhelming, but I think just starting the process, taking the little steps, it does, your student will get through it. All of you will get through it together. It's really not, there isn't that much to it. Like what I showed you, if they just start getting going with it, they'll see that they can finish it off easily enough, but they should make sure they should get other pairs of eyes on it, make sure there aren't mistakes. Again, we're going to go over the Common App more thoroughly, but right now I think it's really helpful to just think about how they want to present themselves to the admissions committee, and then work backwards. What supports that narrative, and brainstorm. I think they might be surprised of some of the things they're already doing, and that's when I work with students. I'm always surprised what I might uncover and say, "Oh my gosh, why haven't you mentioned that before?" And sometimes, your kids are always like, "Mom, leave me alone. You're bugging me." But often it's the parent that remembers that they did something, and that might be important, and the parent might mention it to me. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's fascinating. So dialoguing with the students, dialoguing with the parents, like asking them, what do you think makes me special? What stands out about me? And maybe asking, a grandparent or another friend, an adult, or even a friend, when you think of me, what are 3 words that come to mind? And then start giving evidence to support those things if they resonate with the students.
I mean, I have quoted this comment a few times because I just really like it, and I think it gets across the essence of the situation. There was an admissions officer that we interviewed a few years ago, and they called themselves, they felt like they were the lawyer, in a case, and they had to sift through the evidence to put together the pieces of the case. And in essence, that's what admissions officers, you can think of them as the lawyer, and you are presenting them with all these pieces because you can't be there yourself, right? You're not there in real life. So you're sending representations of you, whether it's, through the courses that you took, the grades that you got, what you choose to highlight on the Common App, what your essay is, how you write the supplements. They're all reflections of you, and you have to decide how you want those puzzle pieces to fit together and what you want the overall picture to look like. And then you want to make it as strong as possible, because again, you're not there to explain it. So that admissions officer, or that kind of quote lawyer, has to figure out, do these pieces come together? Do they make sense? Do I see the bigger picture of what this person's trying to tell me?
And are there holes in it? Like you're saying, you want to make sure that the picture is fully there. And if you get another pair of eyes on, like, that's where I do Common App reviews and look at it, and I come at it with fresh eyes, and sometimes then I meet with the family after I've reviewed it, and I'll be like, this doesn't make sense, or can you explain this to me? And it's just good to get someone else to look at it to make sure that it makes sense, that there just aren't obvious. You guys are so close to it, you don't always see things as clearly. And often the students don't even have the things ordered properly. I'll have to say, you want to be an engineer, why did you put, this robotics competition at the bottom? You just need people to just look at it. That's just another suggestion.
And to that point, what Ellen said, we did send out an email. If we do offer services, if people want help in kind of all different ways. So if your student wants help to kind of put together their Common App in the way that we just talked about tonight, figuring out what they should be highlighting, what should be in the activities section. We've got a service that helps for that. A lot of times a little bit later on in the season, sometimes students have already done the Common App, but they, as Ellen was saying, want a second set of eyes to look it over. So we also do that. We can kind of, play that objective role of looking at the Common App, what's been highlighted, how does that information on the Common App fit with the essay, and kind of say, does this all come together or not? So just know that, if you need extra help, reach out. We can help in lots of different ways. And you'll should have been getting an email about it. And hopefully, you get started and don't leave this to the last minute, because rush, we should come up with a phrase like, just rushing is just not, it's not going to be beneficial to your student and how their kind of case comes across to the admissions office. Nobody ever does good work when it's last minute.
And they need to make sure they're getting good grades senior year, so they need breathing space, and writing is rewriting. So they need to work on an essay and let it rest and come back to it. And they're also going to be maturing during this time and becoming better writers, so that when they go to college, they're writing at a college level, so that college is easier. So one of the things about doing this whole process is I find that the students become better writers through taking the time to let things rest and learn grammar. They don't tend to learn grammar. I work on grammar with them and teach them things. And so it is a maturation process, and it can't necessarily be rushed, but they also need breathing room. So starting early gives them that space to do that. And then it hopefully limits fighting in the house.
And then on that note, we will truly say goodbye. Thank you, everybody. Always feel free to reach out. You can email me at debbie@roadtocollege.com. You can email Ellen at ellen@roadtocollege.com. If you've got questions on anything, we try and answer them as quickly as we can. Thank you. Thanks, Ellen. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.